My folks built their home about 5 blocks from MJC in 1922, before MJC was built.
I think I was here at one of the more interesting times in the history of JC, because it was in '44, and we were at the ending of World War II. I think it was like 400 women and 50 men, maybe, and a few very young ones. Just before I graduated, the spring semester, that would have been '46. The boys, who to us were men, started coming back from the service. It was a delightful last semester.
After the war, I was teaching at Monterey High School, and I received a phone call from Fred Earl. And I had never met Fred Earl, but I knew who he was, and he was the athletic director here. And he said, "Would you like to be the basketball coach of Modesto Junior College?" And I was speechless, because at that time there were only 26 junior colleges in the state of California. And for him to ask me if I was interested, I said, sure. He said, can you come here on the next Saturday for an interview? In those days they didn't have committees. And so he interviewed me in his backyard in his swimming pool while he was giving a swimming lesson. And so after about 20 minutes of interviewing me, he says, "Leon, you've got the job." And I was dumbfounded. So now I had to go back and tell my wife we're going to leave beautiful Monterey and come to hot Modesto. And, but it was the greatest move I ever made. There was a rich core of master teachers here, but they were so wonderful to the rookies who came in. They welcomed us with open arms, and they treated us like we were the future of the college, taught us techniques, but most important, they taught us the loyalty and love. Of this institution, because it was, you know, one of the greatest institutions in a junior college level in the state, due to these people. And so they trusted the rookies to carry on the tradition of that they had set. And those standards were really high.
Hello there, my name is Dee King, and I started working full-time at MJC in 1965. When I was first hired, I was hired by Modesto City Schools, because at that time we were part of Modesto City Schools. We didn't become our own district till quite a few years later. One day Wes and I were talking about the rocks in the quad, and I told him that they were put here as a prank. MJC used to have their Bret Hart days, and 2 or 3, or I don't know how many of the guys went up to the mountains and picked up all these big old rocks and brought them out and dumped them in the quad as a prank. Obviously, they've stayed here ever since and have become a great landscape piece here in the MJC quad.
As a student here, from 62 to 66, there was a house that sat in that parking lot. Apparently the college bought the property around, apparently, where you could sort of go in there and park, and it wasn't a parking lot like it is now, but you just sort of fought for every space you could find, and if you got here early enough, you could park sort of around that house.
What happened to the house?
Well, apparently sometime after I left for the Army, that was taken out. In the late 60s or early 70s maybe, or whatever, that disappeared.
This house was built about 1906 down where the north parking lot is at the MJC East, and I moved the house about 49 years ago to this location here. It was built by my great uncle with help from his father, my great grandfather, and so it served us very well.
Pop Swallow was really the heart and soul of the athletic department, the enthusiasm of the athletic department. He was the oldest yell leader in the United States, and all football and basketball games started with the yell, the Wahoo yell. And he would get up before the student body and lead the student body in this yell. And it set the tone for the game, you know, the enthusiasm of the crowd, the enthusiasm of the athletes. And so they performed above their level because of this type of support that was given to the athlete.
He was born in 1873 in Hollis, New Hampshire. He went to Dartmouth College and he played football and he ran on the track team. And he was quite a good trackster, I was told, and in fact was seen out at MJC working out with the track team in these later years when he was here as a 60-year-old.
In 1937, we instituted the basketball tournament, which is still going on here at the college. Of course, we had the most wonderful of all, who incidentally is in the Athletic Hall of Fame, and that was Pop Swallow. He came to every single football game, and he had a very favorite yell that used to, whether the yell leaders could get anybody to yell, Pop Swallow could always get it with his wahoo-wah, wahoo-wah yell. And none of us will ever forget that, I don't think.
And we'd be sitting there in the stands at the junior college watching the game, and pretty soon Pop Swallow would come out from nowhere, and his shirt always hang out. He always had his shirt hanging out, and he wasn't very tall. And he started in that, you know, that talk he had, wahoo, 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 wah, wahoo, 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 wah, Modesto, Modesto, wahoo, wah. And he got everybody going. Even myself, I got excited. I was only 14 years old then, but I got excited.
He was about 5'6", and happy-go-lucky little guy. He's just wonderful, and he had that wonderful wahoo yell. And matter of fact, I think it probably originated just about the time I was here. Wahoo wah. silly, but he was inspirational, and the team would be at halftime would be lagging along and looking lackadaisical, and he'd get out there and he'd lead that wahoo, and everybody perked up, and the team would perk up, and they'd go much better.
One day I was sitting in my office and I was talking to my secretary, and I said, I want you to write a letter. I watched the program last night. The individual would describe what he did, and then there was a panel that would try to guess, and they were very good. They 80% of the time they would get the right answer. And so I had her write the letter, I signed it, mailed it on. Several weeks later, her secretary came running out. She says, Mr. LaFile, New York's on the line. They want to talk to you. And so I ran in the office and wanted to know about Pop Swallow, and I told him, you know, that he was our official yell leader, and his age was 80 at that time. And they said, do you think he'd come to New York? I said, I'm sure he'd come to New York. Do you want me to come with him? No, we don't want you to come with him.
They flew him to New York, and Leon was to go with him, but he gave up his ticket so Grandma could go with him. And that was the first time Pop and Grandma had been farther than 150 miles from Modesto.
So Pop Swallow appeared on that program, and he was marvelous. The panel kept trying to guess, and finally they gave up. And he said, I'm the oldest active yell leader, and they were awestruck.
After he stumped the panel and he got the $80, they had him get up there and lead the yell.
And so he led the panel and the audience in that wahoo, and it was fantastic. Everybody in Modesto watched it.
He had a wonderful sense of humor and loved life and loved youngsters especially. They kept him young.
In the 1952 Buccaneer, which they dedicated to him, MJC yearbook, I loved the students as if they were my own kids. And see, I kind of grew up with Grandpa Swallow that way. We knew he loved us, and there was just this big extended family of all of the athletes and his junior college family.
That was a big highlight of his life, I know, for them to get to go to New York and be on national television in black and white. There was no color TV then. wahoo, wahoo, wah. Modesto, Modesto, wahoo, wah. Yay!
Faye Quisenberry, who later on became dean, was the head of the P department before I was the head of the P department, and she set standards that the whole state followed.
Yeah, Quiz was a wonderful personality, and everybody's friend.
I was here until 1993 when I retired at 28 years at the college, and was here doing a lot of change, really the golden years of MJC as far as I'm concerned. I began interviewing with audio tape people who had some interest in the past, and led to an interview with Faye Quisenberry.
My first year was at Modesto High School in 1922. Then, my second year, my sophomore year, at Christmas time, they finished South Hall, enough that we could move in January. We sat on the floor because the furniture had not arrived. The electricity wasn't on. Because this was a grain field surrounding South Building, which was the only building on campus, there were a lot of jackrabbits. One time, the fellows in the rifle club went up to visit the president, and they saw a jackrabbit out the window. So they just opened up the window and shot the jackrabbit.
It certainly is a pleasure being here this morning on this bright sunny day and seeing all your faces and the excitement around the reopening of this building. So with that said, I think we need to get going because we probably don't want to stand out here too long.
We welcome you to Modesto Junior College as we gather here this afternoon to dedicate Founders Hall. This is our 50th year, and we certainly urge your continued support during the next 50 years.
This is not the first dedication that I have participated in here. The first one took place in 1923. At that time, this was a grain field without vegetation and with a partially constructed building which came to be called South Hall.
Just like the old days, back in 56 and 57. When I would drive up here in my 53 Studebaker and go to class in North Hall and in South Hall. Looking north over toward the library, it's very similar. It was the old concrete building. I understand that when the war came along, they were unable to complete it and to put the bricks on it to make it match North and South Hall, and so they left it with just the concrete surface. But that's the one building that remains.
About 1976, we built the new gymnasium here where a parking lot used to be for the students. And the old gym's just a little bit southeast of the football field. And that gym was not torn down, but cut in 3 sections and moved to Carver Road and was put back together, and for years it had Dorothy tile on the side of it. But the old gym is still in existence to this day.
I would like to congratulate Modesto Junior College on its 90th birthday. And isn't that strange? Because I'm 90, I'm 90 and a half now. But I'm so proud to be able to wish this to you, because you can wish it back to me. And happy 90th birthday to you too, Carol.
South Hall ended about here, and then maybe 30 feet or 40 feet, the pit started. And it was probably 3 feet deep. And they'd fill it with water. And then the kids would get on one side, and then kids on the other side.
Usually the freshmen against the sophomores. And they'd choose a team of 20 guys.
And they'd have this big tug of war until finally one group went into the water.
And sooner or later, 20 guys got dunked in the canal.
One play I was in was Mary Queen of Scots. Betty Fitch played the villain queen. She played Queen Elizabeth. I played Lord Burleigh, who was kind of like a secretary to Queen Elizabeth. So I was to be an old man. I required a long beard, things like that, and holding the scrolls or papers and making notes. Barbara Gartshore says, "Wait, hold it, Bob." She says, "Your hands are not those of an old man." She says, "An old man, you know how an old man holds a book or paper?" Says he holds it like this. And he said, "You're holding things like this. That's a young man's hands." He says, "I want you to have an old man's hands." That was the first lessons I learned in acting, was to the little details like that, the knuckles showing. Called for me lighting a cigarette very suave. And I'd never smoked. Barbara Gartshore asked one of the other cast members who smoked to give me a cigarette. I couldn't inhale the thing because I'd never done it. And then I mean, it'd be a cloud of smoke, and Barbara Gartshore, "Stop, stop." She said, "Bob, who are you trying to kid? You're 19 years old. Don't tell me you never smoked a cigarette." I said, "I hadn't." She says, "Well, you can't blow it out like that. You can't blow a big cloud out like that. You have to be suave." At that time, the drugstores carried a medicated cigarette called Q-bibs. They looked like a cigarette. The asthmatics would light them and inhale this medicated smoke. So I bought a package of Q-bibs. So I, very suave, I lit it and lighted up this Q-bib. And I had maybe several trips across the stage, back and forth from stage left to stage right, while I was holding this cigarette and smoking it. And these Q-bibs, if you didn't smoke them according to the directions, the sparks dropped off the ends. So here I am, very suave, walking across the stage, lighted this up, and Mrs. Barbara Gartshore says, "Wait, stop, stop. Bob, what in the world are you doing? This whole canvas is going to burn."
Now here in the middle of the east end of the quad, we had the Greek theater, which I called a big cement slab. And during graduation, they'd set all these chairs up on this green grass, and everybody, all your family or whatever friends, would sit in the chairs. And then we would come out of North Hall, and we came out and we walked down and came up and got in line and got ready to be handed our diplomas. And the cement slab, or the Greek theater, was sitting where basically the same footprint, only not as big, of course, as Morris Memorial is now.
And Michael is just our name. MICL, Modesto Institute for Continued Learning, MICL. Nobody gets paid anything. Many of our members will teach a class or lead a class. Odessa Johnson was, we went to her when we knew we needed a connection with a junior college or something, and she grasped the idea very quickly, and I just love her. She's a wonderful person. She was so supportive. We have to be careful about words like teaching and tests. We don't have any tests. We don't have any credits. We don't have any grades. This is learning for the fun of it.
This little boy grew up in Modesto, California. He was a dreamer. He loved to read comic books and watch TV. In high school, he loved cars, but education wasn't a priority. Just before graduation from Downey High School, he miraculously survived a horrible car crash. It changed his life and gave him new focus. He enrolled at Modesto Junior College, where he got good grades. After graduation from MJC, he went on to USC Film School. He did more than just become a great filmmaker. Over the past 40 years, his innovative ideas, his dreams, have positively changed all of our lives forever. His name? George Lucas. Thank you, George. It's a pretty well-known fact that George Lucas is a graduate of Modesto Junior College. And of course, Jeremy Renner and Lindsay Pierce and a host of other contemporary talents. But what about the earlier days of MJC? Did you know that well-known character actor Jack Elam was a graduate of MJC?
Jack Elam is a famous movie actor. He had a bad eye, and one eye went off to an angle, but he played a lot of westerns. He played the bad guy, and he played crooks, and he played comic. And he was a utility actor in Hollywood for many, many years. In fact, his whole life, I guess.
I tried out for a play one time, the night of January 17th, I think it was the name of it. And Jack Elam was the principal in it, and I got a part in it. Well, I attended 2 practices, and it turned out that it was every night for 5 nights a week for 5 weeks. And I was trying to make grades to get into professional school, so I excused myself from that. And Barbara Garshore had to look for somebody else. But Jack was in that play, and he went on to a very, very successful career.
Before he became an animator with the Walt Disney Studios in the mid-30s and directed sequences from several Disney features of the early 40s, most notably the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment of Fantasia, James Algar was a student at Modesto Junior College. His illustrations appear in the 1931 issue of MJC's yearbook, The Buccaneer. In the 50s, James Algar began directing features in Disney's True Life Adventures series, including The Living Desert and The Vanishing Prairie. He also directed many episodes of the television series The Wonderful World of Disney. When I was a student back in the 60s, there are some key people that really had a significant role in forming my passion for doing what I have done for the past 38 years here at Modesto Junior College as an employee. Bill Hill was a very dynamic, energetic radio person and television person. I learned directing from him, switching, camera operation. Harley Lee, he taught me film. And back in those days, it was actually film. It was motion picture film that we shot. Students today, they say they're doing a film, but to me, it's video, really. But back in the day, now I sound like a real old man, but we did shoot motion picture footage and edit it, doing A/B roll, and it was a wonderful, amazing process. So I really owe a lot of gratitude to Bill Hill, to Harley Lee. The man who hired me for my career here at MJC was Dr. Ed McClarty.
I marvel at the setup in this beautiful building because a very dear friend of mine, Ed McClarty, was the mastermind around building the auditorium. And it was a state of the art. And then when they renovated it, and that's how time goes by, I couldn't believe that beautiful auditorium that Ed had personally lived every moment of its development, they were renovating. And then when I visited and saw the additions and the improvement, I said, Dr. McClarty is smiling up in heaven because his dream is finally realized. He started out as an instructor in the speech department. He was magnificent. Then he became Dean of Communication, and I used to kid Ed. I said, you're the only Dean of Communications in any institution in the United States. That's how important you are. And he was way ahead of his time. He dreamed of a college without walls, and that was teaching subjects, classes on television before anybody even dreamed of that. And of course, it's common now. So the entire radio program here and the television program was his dream. Personally, for me to see the program in many ways closed curtailed is a tragedy.
Dr. Ed McClarty, I remember back when he interviewed me, there was no committee that did it, it was just him. And he asked me, how long do you think you'll work here? And he thought I was going to say like 3 years, 5 years, something like that. But I said, well, I think I'm going to retire here. And I don't think he really believed me. 38 years here at Modesto Junior College, and it's had its ups and downs, but the ups are certainly the ones I want to focus on. And even though right now the television and film and radio department is not operating as an instructional facility, we are still producing with students. They've been given a taste of what it's like and what they want, and we're going to keep doing that as long as we can.
I'm Cheryl Dell, and this is my husband Brad. We went to MJC in the late 70s, 77 through 79, and were debate partners while we were here. In addition, I was student body president, but really the highlight of my time here was debating with Brad. We were able to tour around the state and actually around the country. We ended up winning nationals our sophomore year. The reason we were so talented was unquestionably because we had great coaching. Steve Collins and Jim Johnson helped both of us to learn a lot about the world, about each other, and about the issues that we were debating. And because of them, we were able to compete effectively, representing MJC and having a blast at the same time. We both owe a great deal of our professional paths to people who inspired us and taught us during the time that we were here. Names that come to mind for me are Don Ahrens, who taught me so much about the physical world around me. Randy Siefken, who taught us a lot about politics. Both of us became adults for the first time at MJC, voted in our first elections while we were here. And Randy helped us understand the issues and make better and more informed decisions. And then, of course, there's Ted Hamilton, who taught us a lot about government, something I still use as I make my way through my professional life today at the Bee. And I remember a very special Valentine's Day when I woke up sick as a dog and Brad wanted to drag me down to MJC anyway. He said we had a very special errand. And so as we walked into the quad and sat down, much to my surprise, he proposed.
Modesto Junior College has a rich past, and although the present has many challenges, the faculty, staff, and administration of MJC are committed to continuing the fine tradition of educational excellence at California's first community college. The future holds many enhancements to instruction through new and improved facilities. Modesto Junior College, a fine tradition, 90 years strong.